Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic today, Tim. We're joined by an individual who's returning to the show to talk again about his missing son. And while this conversation is naturally tragic, it's always good to have this man back on. But before we get to that, Tim, how are you?
I am doing well. Thanks a lot for asking. And yeah, I am excited to speak with David Robinson again. We first met David Robinson last year at CrimeCon in Las Vegas, and we had him on, and then we spoke with him on Zoom a little bit later. So now this is the third time we're speaking with David Robinson, and you don't really have to scroll back to the other episodes, but there is some good information in those that we do follow up on a little bit here. David's son, Daniel Robinson, disappeared from Buckeye, Arizona on June 23rd, 2021. So we're at the 2-year anniversary of Daniel's disappearance. And David has done an amazing job advocating, and that is continuing actually with a candlelight vigil that's happening this Friday night, June 23rd, 2023. And you'll hear David talk about it in the conversation.
And for more information on that, you can go to pleasehelpfinddaniel.com. Scroll down just a little bit, and you'll get the link that'll lead you to the Please Help Find Daniel YouTube channel. So as many people as possible, you don't have to stay there too long. Just show up with the candle, show your respects, and just let David know that you support him and Daniel and the whole family. Speaking of that website, there are many, many links on that website where you can contribute to the cause in various forms.
Right, like there is a mail-in protest. I actually just mailed out a few letters today, so I'm happy to help Mr. Robinson in that way. And you can help too, so go to pleasehelpfinddaniel.com.
And if you're listening to this episode on Thursday, on the release day, please note that we are having a special live event, virtual live event, this evening on the Crawlspace podcast YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be joined by our own Jennifer Amell and survivor Jane Borowski. They're going to come on and talk about the production Dark Valley, which is the new Crawlspace media show. I want to thank everybody for listening to that and rating it and reviewing it. Please spread the word. But if you want to hear more of Jane's story, interact with us a little bit, again, the Crawlspace Podcast YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you there. And Tim, where would folks go if they wanted to follow everything that Missing has going on social media?
Listeners can follow Missing on social media at MissingCSM. We're going to break quick for commercial here, and we'll be right back with David Robinson. Welcome back to the podcast, David Robinson. David, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And we had spoken at CrimeCon last year, right? And you had information about your son, Daniel. I wish we had you on with some significant answers today, but there's been some developments, and you're still, before we started recording, you said you started today hitting the ground running, which is amazing that you're still keeping up the pace with this. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, my mind is always there to do everything I can, every effort I can to help locate my son, to find those answers that we're looking for. Try to put, keep continuous pressure on law enforcement to keep going forward, trying to avoid my son's case to becoming cold. So much evidence out there, so much things out there. I want to make sure we explore every aspect of those.
Can you take us through some of the circumstances surrounding his disappearance?
Yeah, sure. Daniel, he's a geologist. Of course, his job is to go out to various well sites all across Arizona, desert state that it requires groundwater. So his job entails him going out to, use his science to test the groundwater to make sure they are producing at least that 100 years of water. Daniel went he was assigned to 2 well sites from his company. Of course, you guys may remember, and he made it to one well site, but he went out to a second well site, headed that way to meet another gentleman works for another water company out there. And according to this other guy, they made it to the well site around 9 o'clock that morning. about 9:15, he said, waved off to him, drove off to never be seen again. You guys know 30 days after that, his vehicle showed up farther into that Sonoran Desert in a 20-foot ravine, turned to the side. Everything was vital. It was 3 feet away from the vehicle in the pile. But there was no sign of my son. To this date, still searching for him and trying to get those answers to exactly what happened.
And I know there are tens and hundreds of thousands of people who know about Daniel's disappearance because you communicate this so well online, social media, interviews, regular media. You're always out there. You're always trying to, like you said, put the pressure on and get some answers. But we have to go back and ask you, can you tell us the circumstances, which you just did. And I think that's really important. My opinion is that it's really important to go through those basic circumstances of your son's disappearance because you never want to lose that. And you said you don't want this case to be cold. So you never want to lose what the initial details were, because then it starts to snowball into something else. Have you found that any deviation from those original details, have you found that that's been happening lately and you have to go back and say, no, that wasn't what happened. This is what happened?
Yes, of course. The way I see it is almost like if you was to have a room full of people, you whisper in their ear and tell them something, and they whisper in the next person all the way until it comes back to you. It'll be something different. And I've had that experience, of course, through social media, from things that even Daniel's not even real. The story is not even true, for instance. I'm a person that work for the government, that type of stuff. So, I mean, those stories can get twisted up. Of course, people have a high interest in the case. They want to know more. Sometimes people go out and investigate themselves and end up with their own narratives.
And we're approaching 2 years of Daniel being missing. I understand you're planning a vigil for later this month.
Yeah, that is correct. On the 23rd of this month, I will be having a virtual Unity like vigil. And the reason why I called it Unity, since day one, I reached out to the community. The community reached back to me. People like yourselves have been helping my efforts to find my son. I could not have done this alone. Daniel has a way of bringing people together. I said this many times. That's the type of person that he is. Whether he's here or not, he's bringing people together from all walks of life to search for him, help me in my efforts. Also, it's also to help other families. This candidate visual is to remind everybody of what happened in my son's case, but at the same time, bring awareness what's happening to other cases. Over 1,400 people go missing a day here in this country, and we'll make sure that we're highlighting that truth and let people know, hey, it can happen to you, God forbid. Also, I will have families on that day so we can be able to share their stories as well. Hopefully that those who are coming in that unity will use their voice, listen in on this candidate visual, and then also share those family stories as well.
Yeah, that's really, really important because all too often these stories just buried in the onslaught of information that's thrown at us every single day, and right. You lose those stories. And it's really crazy to hear how many people go missing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and you only remember the ones that you just heard about. And that's the importance of what you're doing, is always keeping Daniel's name out there, and then doing these vigils to let people know it's not just him. It's a bunch, it's thousands of others that have come before. And really, leading into my question, what advice do you give people after you do the vigils and after you talk about your son and after you give the statistics of people who have disappeared? What do you tell people as far as preventative measures to make sure that it's not going to happen?
Yes, to keep your case from becoming cold, I look at this as a lifeline, almost like life support for a case. You have to make sure that the media, that your social media, whether it's social media or the media in general, are sharing your story, family story. It's because that's what keeps the case from going to a cold case status. Families, I talk to a lot of families, and they can relate to this. It's very difficult to keep the story out there. First of all, it's very difficult to get out there in the first place. But to keep that story going on that storyline, like you said this a while ago, sometimes, even with the media, like on the news stations, they're looking for a news story. They're looking for an update. They're looking for something exciting to be able to put on their channels to keep that story alive. and it's very difficult. If it's difficult for them, you definitely understand how difficult it is for a family member to do that. But the advice I give to families is initially when a person go missing in your family, the first steps I would say do first of all was work with law enforcement. Of course, that's automatic. But you need to go ahead and build a family website like I did. PleaseHelpFindDaniel.com was the first thing that I did. And the reason why, I'm a military guy. We all know that communication key. We could not do anything out in the war zone without having proper communication. And so you need to communicate to the public, you need to communicate to everybody at large. Put your family member pictures up, put some information about the case, what's going on, what happened, and it gives some people a place to go to. You go on social media, share the story, but at the same time, you point at the website, and that way it will humanize that person most of all. And at the same time, it brings the support that you need.
Absolutely. Well said. And you mentioned the police. How has it been recently working with the Buckeye police in Arizona?
Yeah, as you guys know, in the past, when I first came out to Arizona, of course, I've been working side by side with the law enforcement. That's automatic. You know, my hopes were to do just that, just work with the law enforcement, and we work together to find out exactly what happened to Daniel. Those efforts with the law enforcement kind of quickly fell apart. They went one direction with a narrative that they wanted to stick with. I had to end up getting my own private investigator. In our investigations, my own investigation as well as my investigator, we found a lot of information that led to foul play. But seemingly law enforcement was not willing to explore those things that we discovered and hand over to them. So of course our relationship ended up starting to fall apart, go away from each other. But currently, of course, I've been putting pressure campaigns on, having people writing letters. I had this mail-in protest, you guys know, it's still going to this day. People are protesting through the mail. That's something I created so that anybody, no matter where we live, can be involved. That keeps the pressure on law enforcement, and actually worked because the law enforcement now are trying to do some of those things that I've been asking for literally over a year of my son being missing. So, you know, those pressure campaigns work with law enforcement. That's another advice I give families is to also stay active with law enforcement, constantly keeping some type of pressure. Because what it does, it keeps them from saying, well, there's no interest from the family, there's no interest from the community. Now we can throw this case in the way I see it in my brain. We put this in a dark closet that builds cobweb, and the next detective who come into that department maybe 20 years later say, hey, I want to solve one of these cold cases, and then they solve it really quickly. That don't mean that they solved it as better because that new law enforcement officer came in. It's because they put when it was fresh, they put it in the back closet when they could have kept going and got those answers.
And when you tell these stories, and you know, there's a lot of frustration behind it, obviously, and I think that connects with what you said earlier about people wanting to investigate it on their own. So I think people will hear this and they'll get frustrated, and then they'll say, well, there's something I can do. What do you communicate to people who are very committed to investigating this on their own when they're not like licensed investigators?
Yeah, well, it's okay. I think sometimes, like I said, I really appreciate people who shows those interests, and that let me know they're interested in what's going on in my son's case, for instance. And I enjoy the fact that they are looking at some things, but sometimes there can be a hindrance. And my private investigator, he had a lot of issues with sometimes people will go in and investigate themselves and put out information they can end up finding. Put it out into the public. For instance, we had a gentleman who said that he was another person that seen my son last. He described himself as a federal law enforcement officer. I mean,
Yeah.
and showed the badge and everything. But of course, I quickly was kind of dismissing a lot of what he was saying based on his story change. At the time, I was actually having direct conversation with him, being able to record a lot and get a lot of information. But then we had an internet, I think you call it the social media sleuth or something, that the word they use. This gentleman, he went to one of the searches and then he researched this gentleman and put out his rap sheet all across the internet. By him doing that, that caused the person I was looking at as a suspect to get information from, caused him to shut down. So we was limited on the information that we could get from that point. So that's why I'm saying it's very crucial. It's okay to look in and try to help in certain forms of fashion, share the story. But when you're going too far and then you go ahead of an investigation, that hurts.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to repeat what you said. Somebody put information out there that included a potential person of interest, and that person shut down because they had information out there that they didn't want out there, and that limited you in your investigation. So everyone should really listen to that. Like, if there's something in the back of your mind and you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart, and there's something in the back of your mind where it's telling you, is this maybe not something I should be doing? You're probably not supposed to be doing it. So just apply some checks and balances to your investigation. That was the general advice that I'm giving out there.
That's right. That's right. Another thing too, I could say, again, I really appreciate those who want to help. We have some internet content creators who was very helpful. They talked to me directly, say, "Hey, Mr. Robinson, I found out where this person lives," or something like that. Some information I may have not been able to get quickly. Having those people out in the social media, I want to say it helps sometimes too. Just the way they're doing, like you said, they need to think before they react. Because a lot of times it's almost like a tip. If you have things that you really figured out on your own, it's a tip. Send it over to the law enforcement. Send it over to those who are investigating, and let them go farther with it. So that's fine. But when you kind of sharing things on social media, because hey, I found this information. Hey, y'all check this out. A lot of time it interferes with the investigation itself.
Right. You mentioned your mail-in campaign. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I see that there are 4 different templates that you've written very clearly on your website. They're downloadable. Are there any in particular you're hoping to focus on now, or all of them are still a major focus?
Well, all of them are focused. One in particular, when they say, I say things like, "Hey, look, we look for a change in jurisdiction." That's what I'm currently doing. Is getting my son's case moved out of the Buckeye Police Department and over to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, where they have a better facility. They're able to do the forensics that I'm looking for. It's a bigger department, so fresher eye on my son's case will be very crucial to us finding out what happened. Buckeye haven't given us any information that bring us closer to answers. Everything we know about my son's vehicle, certain details like that came from my efforts, came from my hiring my private investigator. So we need a fresh set of eyes. So yeah, those flyers, they're very important. That's something I want people to send out by the thousands, hopefully. And it's been working. You see the reaction of the law enforcement. They actually put out a new report trying to really stretch things out to have an appearance that they've done a whole lot. And I explained that on my channel as well. But that let me know that those things are working. What we're doing is trying to get thousands of letters in. Those are picket signs. I don't just look at them. They are picket signs. Those are things that we will be monitoring once after the 23rd when I have a physical protest. People that live in South Carolina, those who live in Australia, those who live in New York, wherever you're living, you are actually there with me, but you're doing it by mail. You're putting those picket signs in the mail and you send it to the law enforcement agencies daily with those writings. Hey, we look for justice. We need it now. We need to have a jurisdictional change, etc. So those are for.
And you work with a pretty significant team. You have a really good team behind you and around you that you've surrounded yourself with. And I think that that's important. And I think that a lot of people who are experiencing this right away, like you said, the first thing you should do is start a website. But I think a lot of people just get so frustrated with how their missing individual, how that is being treated by law enforcement. We talk to people all the time, and they get very overwhelmed with that, and they almost become like they can't move. They become like frozen because they don't know what to do, and it overwhelms them. How do you communicate that to your team to get that support? Because I'm sure people are listening out there and they're thinking, I would love to be able to put this energy into my team. And how do you communicate that to your team?
Well, I've been blessed with the people that surround me. A really nice team, a really good team. We became like family. We're family now. They call themselves the aunties and uncle for Daniel. They were volunteers out there in the desert with me. They saw the things that I was doing, working alone. They was amazed. Like so many people say, "Hey, how you handle all these things by yourself?" So one of the individuals, she got together and put the team together, and they all together try to see some form of way they can help in my efforts. And they presented themselves by asking me to come to a meeting. That's when I first met them. But going forward, we talk every day. I'm sorry you probably hear the noise in the background. I meant to take the thing off. I heard an alert just now, but we talk to each other every day, and I communicate those things. Those things that some of the tools I used when I was in the military, I cannot approach my team like I did in the military. You will do this, and you will be here 15 minutes prior to 15, things like that. That don't work with civilians, but at the same time, just be direct with them and tell them, hey, look, this is the need I have. They see it, people can see it, but this is the need I have. And just be very personal with your team. This person that you can actually trust, and let them know your feelings, what's going on, and things like that, and they're willing to help.
Now, you've led a lot of searches since Daniel's gone missing. How are the searches going now? What are your plans for future searches?
Yes. We did over 49 weeks of searches now. The last search was in February 25th of this year. And I have a search coming up over the summer to complete some of the areas that we didn't get. I had a good conversation with the new landowners out there who's building this big mega city, the Howard Hughes Corporation. They allow me to do another search this summer. So I will be doing that to hopefully finalize the areas, so we can kind of rule the desert out, that Daniel's not out there. But I also have a search coming up that I did before. It's called a specialized specialized operations search, and that is almost like the military would say. The Marines would say we need a few good men, but men and women. Well, I just need a few people. It's going to be roughly 30 people or less. Really small group of people to do a search of an area that's just based on some other information that I received, and also part of my investigation. So I do have those things coming up, and make sure that we're actually looking for Daniel. Make sure we are clearing some areas, and ruling things out. And so yes, I will be having those coming up this summer.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
And recently there's been some news articles written about new information regarding Daniel's disappearance, and I don't know the importance of it, and I want to get your opinion on that. And I don't want to say what it is, because if it's not important, why put it out there? Like internet searches and things of that nature, is that important? And do you feel like you need to specify what was released?
Well, it's almost like you go to the doctor, and the doctor have you sitting on the edge of the table, and he tap your knee, and your knee jump. That's what the law enforcement is doing right now. I call it fillers. I read I've not completed with the report, but I've been reading the report. I stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to go through the report, and I see a lot of fillers, and that's why I'm saying the report seemed really large. It appeared that they have done a whole lot. Those are fillers. To me, it's a reaction to my efforts, my push to them to do more. I think I call it getting in your feelings. I think law enforcement is getting their feelings. They're adding things to. It's almost like a drama. Just add some drama to the story, and that's what I've been looking at. Some things that not going to find Daniel, but it also deter people and turn people away from the actual slow action of law enforcement. Saying to kind of keep you looking over here and not over here. So that's the way my opinions of those are. I've seen things of attacks on me as well. I'm by the definition of Arizona, I'm a victim. I'm a family member. I'm a victim. I have the right to point out those things they are not doing, but those are reactionary things. Now, I can say Buckeye has been very hard. If they take the same efforts of try to prove that my son had a depression or something, and actually find him, use that same energy to find him, I think we'd have found him a long time ago.
Interesting. Yeah. this does seem like they're sort of pushing a narrative here and sort of continuing to push the same narrative. That's a bit unnerving, I would say.
Yes. Also, I want to mention, I'm not a person that I'm not a cop basher or something like that, anti-police. No, I'm pro-police. I'm just anti-corruption. And especially in my son's case, if there's no action, and my son is missing. And, as a father, I had to do what I have to do to make sure things are done properly. So I'm going to keep pushing that. That's one of the biggest things I want people to know. I'm going to keep pushing that. So you hear me say certain things about the report and actually really pointing out the facts and the reason why I don't trust the report. And those are the reasons, not the bashing the Buckeye Police Department. It's actually stating the facts as I know it. For instance, the Mile IQ. I know you guys probably heard about the Mile IQ app that would say it put my son phone out there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I have disagreements about that as well. I brought that information over to the law enforcement app. They didn't know the app was on the phone. Once they returned the things over to me, I was able to go through Daniel's phone, get some forensics done. I noticed the app. I talked to the owner of the app, thinking I can get something from it. He definitely told me that he wasn't able to get anything from that 23rd on forward, but he had a few things on that 22nd and 21st. And, maybe something like that can help a little bit. So I did give that to the Buckeye Police Department and also share the email with the Buckeye Police Department that he sent to me. Want to talk with the law enforcement. He had to get permissions first from me. That's the kind of thing that kind of puzzles me because two things can't be true simultaneously. We have data from the vehicle itself saying the crash happened at 1 o'clock, nearly 1 o'clock that evening. But at the same time, Buckeye now saying with the app is saying he was in that crash site. The phone was in the crash site at 10 o'clock in the morning. The both came true. Only way that can be true, that means the vehicle was at the top of the hill there, the ravine. It took 3 hours to hit the bottom. That would be impossible. So we're looking into that to see, check into that again. I am not going to say Buckeye is totally wrong, but those are the things that I had from the owner of that app saying that those data have been deleted off their server. They do it every 90 days. It's been deleted permanently. They couldn't retrieve it. So I'm trying to see where they got those data from and try to match it up to see if it's something that's been added. Because in my opinion, they're really strong on trying to put Daniel's vehicle there for 30 days, and I just don't see how that's possible.
Yeah, what would be the purpose or the significance of that discrepancy of time?
Well, like I said, if you listen to the Buckeye story, that caused me to get a private investigator in the first place. They told me what they thought happened on that scene. They thought he had, luckily he didn't have any injuries because they see no blood. He had a seatbelt on. That's what they initially told me. But in the same breath, they said he had a severe brain injury. And he kicked his way out the sunroof. The brain injury make you hide. Of course, I didn't agree. I have a brain injury. I got hit by IED in Afghanistan. And I never shred my clothes off or felt hot. So, but they said nevertheless, that's what happened. Putting the power, he went under a tree somewhere to cool off, and the animal got him. The second thing they said, he may have wanted to be away from his family and join the monastery, become monk. Maybe he staged this whole thing himself. And also the fact that before they even look into details, the data, like you say, the Mile IQ to you name it, they already had a theory. He crashed this and crashed this on that day, and it'd been here for 30 days. We didn't have no evidence of that. They didn't have no evidence to say that, but they was already saying those things. Once the information came from my investigator that dispute that, saying, hey, the crash happened somewhere else, the red transfer paint, the 46 initial cycle. You got to look at logics, you guys. If you're cranking a vehicle up 46 times after the crash, if it crashed in that ravine, is it physically impossible for a person to sit behind the seat, press the gas pedal, and push that button 46 times? So it defies logic and it defies science. So those things you can look at from a layman's term, but also, like I said, couple that with the data that my investigator was able to give. So I stick on those things, but they was already saying, hey, we're rejecting that data. It was there for 30 days. We just didn't see it. Even though we were flying over it multiple times with these searches, we walked over that area. It wasn't there. It was there. The rancher who found that he was in that ravine 2 days prior, he says and it wasn't there, but they're saying it was there. They making evidence now to say, hey, it was there. So it defies two different things happening at one time, and that's the reason why I had to question a lot.
Yeah, I can't blame you. There seems like some conflicting sort of evidence or forensics even. I remember talking with you about the hard hat that was filled with water that was found in his vehicle. Is there any update on that or any other aspects of the crash?
Well, I'm a father, and I had to put on an investigative hat. I had to learn how to investigate. This is the crazy part about it. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dad who's passionate on finding my son. So of course, I'm going to try to do everything I can. When they told me maybe he join a monastery and become a monk, want to be from you guys, join a monastery, become a monk. I looked for a monastery, which I ended up going to one and found one in Arizona. That's in when I say close, is definitely not walking distance, but it's in that general area, the west side of Arizona. And I went there and it was closed due to COVID. So I know he wasn't there. So I followed up on things. The hard hat, I've been here on social media strongly say, hey, I doubt that hard hat had a business card in it. And I was like, there's no way this business card would sit there in that water for 30 days without turning to mush if it was there. So I look at science that way. But so what I had to do, even that, I had to mimic that. I put, though I couldn't use rainwater because I can't make it rain when I want to, but I added that not distilled water, but purified water inside a bucket and put one of my business cards that I got from Alpha Graphics, and I had to keep it there for 30 days. I can say it stayed pretty much intact, but it was faded, but it was pretty much intact. So I had to say, hey, I don't know what type of ink that was used on that card, so maybe that card could have lasted for 30 days or it could not. The only problem I have with that theory is if the hard hat filled with water inside the vehicle, with only one glass broken in, somehow the rain came through there and filled that hard hat up, where's the water on the interior of the vehicle? That should also be in a puddle or because the vehicle was lying on the window side. Where's the water that developed there as well? If it developed in the hard hat, it should have developed there in that, again, I'm saying that window section that's almost like a bowl itself. There's no water present. So things like that make me question some of those things that was found in that vehicle as well.
And did you also say that the vehicle had been started or there was an attempt to start the vehicle 5 or 6 times?
Well, actually, it's 46 times. It's 46 initial cycles after the initial crash. Also, after the crash, there was 11 miles added to the vehicle. Somebody driven. I didn't know you can drive a vehicle after airbag deployment, but it was driven 11 miles after the airbag deployment. And again, it was cranked up 46 times after the airbag deployment. It's impossible for it to be on the side doing all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's the questions we have.
So, according to that, someone was in the vehicle while it was on its side trying to start it?
Right, and that's impossible to me. That's why it goes along with my investigator. Everything goes along with what my investigator found. He said, "Hey, this is before my investigator even interviewed the rancher. I interviewed the rancher who was there on the ground. He explained, "Hey, look, I came through here. My cattle. And you guys, if you was out on the ground, of course, I had to investigate as well. The cattle comes down that same ravine right here behind me where the vehicle is. It comes down. They come down that ravine to get to a corral where they feed them, and also they catch them, I guess, to send them to market. But free roaming cattle. And he explained that, hey, look, I was coming tracking my cattle to see if they came through. They haven't come through yet. The vehicle wasn't there on the 17th. On the 19th, he came back to see if they came through yet, and that's when the vehicle was there. That's why he called the Buckeye Police Department. So. Those eyewitness things are evidence right there. You take a person's statement and what they said. The Buckeye law enforcement refusing to put that truth in their report. You will never see that in the report. The rancher said this vehicle wasn't here 2 days prior because it don't match their theory before they decided to try to find answers that would match what they're saying.
What about any new leads that came in from online? Were there anything new that sort of proved fruitful sort of things to follow?
We used to get leads all the time. Those kind of things slow down. Of course, I have a tip line that I run. that I pay for. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, live operators, take your call. The tip line also allowed those, let's say you can remain anonymous with the live operators, but if you don't want to talk to anybody, you can actually just text the word tip to that number, for them come and you still remain anonymous. And I do get tips, but not the kind of tips we're looking for. I'm looking for the direct tips, somebody who may know something directly what happened to my son. Of course, I get things where people say, hey, they may be a medium or something like that, and they say, hey, I had this vision and you should go check this spot. So I get things like that, but fruitful things that I can't tell. I can't say those are not fruitful either, but what I'm saying is things that I go directly, those things slow down. For instance, we was able to go to Flagstaff to a Sprouts a grocery store. In the past, my investigator and I, we passed over information to Buckeye Police Department. Also went to Sedona, lead there. We passed that on to Buckeye Police Department. Those things were ruled out, and also in California, it's a Paradise Valley. Rule those things out. Not totally the one in California. Some things we still working on that part because something the lady said stuck out to me and my family. So we still have a hope for that maybe Danny got out of it some kind of way, and because some things the lady said that would sound familiar to us as a family. But ultimately, I know that the Buckeye Police Department had followed some tips. And they called me before and said there was a tip out of New Mexico. They went to go check into. So we get things like that periodically, but nothing that will actually give us the answers we're looking for right now.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
I remember several months ago there was a body that was found in one of the mines there. Is there any update on that?
Well, I'm not familiar with one in a mine.
Yeah, probably confusing the details.
Yeah, but I did have one of the volunteers. I smile because she's a friend of mine too, but she's going out to the desert. She's really passionate to go search for Daniel. And when I'm saying I smile because I get on her all the time. she won't go out there in that desert by herself, and I don't feel comfortable. I tell her, I'll say, hey, don't go out there by yourself. But she's constantly doing it. Every weekend, she's still out trying to locate Daniel. On this particular day, this is the most recent. She was out taking a family member out, this riding their ATV type vehicle, going to search the area because she lived near that, not too far from where Daniel went missing. And so she was out looking and ran into a human skull and some other things, the clothing. And yes, but she did report those over to the Buckeye Police Department, who didn't even contact me. She ended up contacting me and let me know what happened. And so I reached out to the Buckeye Police Department, and they said it wasn't Daniel once they got the forensic stuff back from it. So, but they did find out who the person belonged to, who the person is, and the family that person belonged to, and gave them some type of closure.
Is there anything else that that you'd like to say that maybe we haven't hit on yet?
Well, this efforts keep going. I think the most crucial part, like I have been doing now so far, is putting the pressure on law enforcement too, in Maricopa County as well. I talked to Sheriff of Zone and get Dan's case moved over to that county. My son went missing in Maricopa County. As everybody know, every state, I don't know where you live, but in most states, I can't say every state, but I know most states, the sheriff departments have a jurisdiction that's broad. And they, that's one of the chief over a city cop, for instance, city of Buckeye, for instance. Phoenix Police Department. They're also inside some type of county, and that county is the almost like the big police. Also, we have the DPS in Arizona. That's the big cops. That's the state police, and so have them involved as well. So I just need everybody to push to make sure the FBI. They send the FBI's in Dane's case now for the second time. I tried the first time and that failed. I'm really cautious about saying they're in the case. Because I said it before and then it wasn't true because Buckeye told me that. So I'm just really cautious. Hopefully, I didn't get nobody contacting me, but I just need the public in general to help me keep that pressure on getting my son's case because I moved over to the Maricopa County. I'm still housing forensics. I don't know how long forensics is going to last. I want to know if those are those clothing that was found on the ground is indeed my son's clothing. My family, we looked at the pictures. We don't recognize my daughter that see Daniel almost daily. Don't recognize the clothing. So we want to say, hey, rule out, say, hey, this is dangerous clothing, for instance. We want to know where the red transfer paint came from the vehicle. Explain the two impressions on the windshield. This question that we give law enforcement. I have the airbags. I need those tested as well because airbags take DNA off of people's body. Who was in the passenger side, maybe having a gun on my side? We don't know. Those kind of questions that we have, and we want to make sure that the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, a department that I feel like I can trust and work with, can give us those answers. So that's what I'm looking for from the public right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure this will keep going as long as you keep going. I'm sure the public will always have that energy as long as you do. So well done on all of the work that you've been doing. You mentioned all of this evidence. I'm just curious, where is the evidence being kept, and is it being kept with the vehicle?
Well, those are two different, and I'm paying for this. Guys, you can imagine how much it costs to store a vehicle in a place where there. And the good part is, my private investigator, before he stopped working for me, he make sure it was in a facility that is made for that. That's what they do. They house evidence and they house things for insurance companies and stuff. And so, but it's expensive, and it's something I have to pay for every month. It's not coming out of the law enforcement's budget, paying for that, as well as I had to store the other forensic, the clothing items, the airbags, etc., in a different storage facility. And I had to pay both of those. So they're sitting there waiting on law enforcement. They should be in some evidence locker somewhere. I feel comfortable if the Maricopa County did a full workup on this vehicle, get some full workup on the clothing items and the airbags, etc. Then we may get rid of those things, and there would be no cause, or like I say, stored in their evidence lockers or wherever they store things like that. I think that's where it should be. I think a taxpayer like myself, I'm a dual citizen of South Carolina, Arizona, and our tax dollars pay for those facilities. My son things should be there, not in a private storage.
And one of the last things that I have is just not even really a question, but more like a response to the information that's out there that might indicate, like you said, Daniel might have been suicidal. They'll say stuff like he might have been suicidal. That doesn't matter, though. Like that's it. It doesn't matter. Look at the pictures. Like look at everything and make the determination. But that doesn't matter in any sort of like narrative that is productive in bringing answers. So again, we hear stories like this all the time where it's all of these other reasons why this person's disappearance shouldn't be moved up or become a priority. And well, they're suicidal, or they wanted to do this, or they ran away. But look at the vehicle in this case. It doesn't matter what he was like. Him being suicidal doesn't match the vehicle. Anyway, that's just me being frustrated. I just wanted to put it out there. Yeah. And you do a great job handling this.
Yeah, and what I want to say about that, though, is, of course, I'm a father. I can go by my conversations with my son 2 days prior to him going missing. Nothing out of the usual 2-hour conversation. You even mentioned the young lady that Buckeye is really, I could tell you guys have a lot of questions about that as well. But really putting out about then his mental state. I congratulate them going out to try to prove some type of, like you said, depression or something. But Daniel's a stable person, and his mentality. He's a scientist, not have so much as a speeding ticket, and the law enforcement know that. He not have so much as a speeding ticket. He's a contributor to society. Of course, he smoked marijuana. This is the marijuana state. I went into Arizona for the first time, and my team members, they get a little tight with me. They are natives of Arizona. And I came out one day on my live say, everybody in Arizona smoke weed, So people take offense to that, but that's the way it seemed like, because no matter where I go in Arizona, I'm smelling that smell. I don't particularly do it myself, but my son did. He done it as a recreational use. That is what he does. He's a young man, of course. Just like I have my beer at the end of the day, I drink on a recreational use. So when it comes to his mental state, those things, yes, like you said, are distractions to me. And a lot of times the way I take it is also making victims. My son is a victim make him like they say, hey man, he did this to himself, almost like he deserved it, and he deserved it. Some people would take it that way, he deserved it, and no really value or why we should go look for him. He did this to himself. That's far from this case, like you were saying a while ago. There's too many things there that describes foul play. What foul play means to me in this situation with the vehicle, for instance, I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's been held captive somewhere. We do know that the cartel, that is a big lane, for lack of words I have right now, where the drug trafficking as well as human trafficking come through. It also come through Phoenix. And so, those are plain elements that we try to look into as well. But, there's no indication of that I can say thus far. But I'm saying, we never know. So we can't just like rule out and say, hey, he did it to himself. He is a mastermind, and he wrecked his vehicle because he just wanted to be away from his family, join Monster, become a monk, or get away. No, I do not believe that. I know something happened there, and we need to find the truth to that.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate your time, and we're with you, and we will encourage folks to participate in the vigil and in the mail-in protest as well.
Yes, if anybody have any loved ones that they want to highlight on this visual, please hit me up. Of course, my email address, please help find Daniel@yahoo.com. Please help find Daniel@yahoo.com and let us know. And we'd like to have you on. I will have Mr. Petito, Gavin Petito's father. He would be speaking on the panel as well. So I just want to be able to share, other families' stories as well. So if you have a family member, please hit us up, and I would love to have you there.